Well, hello, true gardeners. Welcome back. If you've clicked on today's video, then you are looking for some ideas, some examples of how to create a low maintenance garden. So many of us are revamping sections of our garden after the most recent frost. So getting some of those questions coming in on so many of my new videos that I thought, let me compile 3 of my favorite low maintenance garden videos and just kind of take the best clips from those and kind of share it in today's video. That way it'll walk you through on how to create this for your own space. So let's just jump right into the video. Bryce, roll the videos. All right, you guys, hello, true gardeners. So it's time. You are ready to get rid of what's in the front yard or jazz it up, make it more interesting, whatever the case may be, but you're looking to create a low maintenance front yard garden. This yard is your typical, I would say, suburban sized yard. So this is a fairly small front yard. This wall that we're working with, you can see all of the weight is to my left side over here of the house. And then this area of the front of the house is quite small. So we don't want to take and overcrowd this space with a bunch of height and a bunch of lushness and a bunch of tropical material. We really want to be careful of what you're going to use there, that it's going to look good now and it's going to look good years from now, because we didn't use material that is just going to, just not fit the space long term. And that's what low maintenance means. We only had the room in this garden to add 1 big tree. We had plans in the original plan to add 2 trees in this front yard space, but easements and whatnot with the HOA didn't work out. So we only had room for 1. So if you got to do 1, why not do a big mamma jamma double like this guy? So this is a double foxtail palm that anchors this corner of the house. You'll notice that I like to push my trees out as far to the edge of the property line as I can without getting into property easements, of course. So this guy is over to the side. I didn't want him in front of the window. I kind of wanted him kind of more in where this blank wall is and pushed him out to the corner. That does a great job of framing the front entrance of the house. In a moment, you'll see on the opposite side how we have a big, giant, fat foxtail on that side to kind of give us that same framework that we have working on either side of this big driveway that we've got. So if you got to do 1 tree, do a double or a triple. That'll give you some substance, some impact, and really kind of, nail that in. That's an anchor tree. So you guys are probably wondering why I use foxtails so often. It's because I like self-cleaning trees. I like trees that you don't have to kind of go in there and trim or pay somebody a couple times a year to go in there and really give it a good haircut. So if it's at all possible and you're looking for a low maintenance tree, a self-shedding or self-cleaning tree is an ideal tree to work with. And I just kind of like how cool and slick this trunk line is. It just really kind of gives me that clean feel that I wanted in this front garden. This foxtail palm is 8-9 foot off of the house here, and it's pushed kind of out this way. So it's really kind of doing a good job of really giving us an entranceway feel. It's kind of just across from the entranceway of the walkway. So I really like the location that it's sitting. I think it's doing a nice job of becoming an anchor in this space. And because I don't want it to get lost, I don't want this to be all trunk when it's 27, 30 foot tall. I want it to have some kind of backing to it. So you guys know I love to put pygmy date palms as a backdrop. It's kind of a fluffy, kind of soft backing. And you only trim this guy 1 to 2 times a year. It really depends on your level of how upright you want to keep these fronds. If you like this bushy, kind of thick feel, you might only trim this once a year. It does have thorns, so that can make it a little bit angry if when you're trimming. So wear your gardening gloves and your long snippers and snip it as close to the trunk line as possible. But again, at a once a year trim offers such a big impact in a garden for such little care in the garden. So definitely worth a tree to incorporate as your either centerpieces or corner pieces or backdrops to big trees to give it depth, to give it that tiering effect. So now we're going to move over to the next tree in this grouping here. This is a European fan palm. This is such a little beauty, you guys. I know some people love them, some people hate them. I don't understand it, because when I'm thinking about low maintenance, I'm thinking about trimming. I'm thinking about care. I'm thinking about overall pest issues and things like that. This guy gives you no problem. Stays put, grows 5 to 6 inches a year. That's how slow this tree grows. Has a beautiful rounded kind of feel. Now, when picking a European fan palm, you can find them very small If they have this nice rounded feel where they kind of have trunks everywhere, that's the tree that you're going to want to find, whether it's a small little guy or a big tree. Because they're so easy to care for in nurseries, a lot of times they get forgotten about, which means that you get a tree that is not super healthy or does not full or doesn't have everything that you want it to have. And for a tree to have such a big presence in a garden, it has to be a real attractive European fan palm. You can see how big this window is and how little a space we have on either side of the window. So I didn't want anything, just clogging up this wall, making this wall even more and more narrow. So I wanted to open it, broaden it up. So in order to do that, you want a focal point here, and then if at all possible, grow into the next two focal points that jet out on either side of it. So it's like a kind of like an offset triangle here. This is our centerpiece. Now we're coming out to our next centerpieces, which are the false agaves. This guy right here on this corner really gives you a cool, fun pop of like a statuesque type of look. And then right at the entranceway does the same thing. And then we sandwich the European fan palm right in the middle. So just to reiterate, and when you're picking out your plants and your trees, your tall stuff, the things that are hard to get to, if you can make them self-shedding, self-cleaning, you're not up in a ladder having to do all that work. When it comes to your small stuff, it's okay to do the trimming as long as it doesn't grow super fast. If you're doing trimming on this tree, maybe once a year, and I mean maybe once a year, and it might be just a limb or two that maybe turned brown from a storm or whatnot. You would trim that once a year in here. These two guys, another low maintenance, they do grow about a foot a year, so you'll get some more size out of this all the way to here, but it is super easy to trim. I know it seems intimidating. Please do not be intimidated by these guys. I don't have any low ones that I can demonstrate for you, but what happens is the growth comes from the middle and pushes the other leaves out. So it'll cause this leaf in the future to kind of come down a little bit more than you may want. So all you do is you take and you put your foot down on that leaf. Take a bread knife, a serrated knife, a steak knife, or a garden knife. I have my Hori Hori garden knife that I love. It's super sharp, has those serrated edges, and all I do is slice it as close to the trunk. I just bend down here and whoosh, that's it. It's just as easy as that. And I might do that twice a year. The next thing you're gonna do are the fillers. So you've got the thrillers, you've got the tall accents, you've got the anchors, but you don't want big, bushy Sanchizia or copper leaves or anything that's gonna really outgrow that space, unless you're a weekend warrior. You guys are out there and you're doing it. But those of you guys who don't want that kind of work, then pick mixes of ground cover and low shrub material, compact shrub material. Along this back wall, we get great sun in this front yard. That is one of the things that we do have. So we could bring in some blooming power. So we've got a clustering of Helen Johnson dwarf bougainvillea. Now, those of you guys who are like, what? Bougainvillea? They're high maintenance. I know, I feel you. They are high maintenance. But dwarf bougainvillea can be and love to be kept compact and small. So every couple months you come in and you just nip these together. You want to let them control and be one solid grouping. They bloom so nicely, and they can handle that direct sun. So they can handle any kind of heat off the pavers. They can handle tough places. And we kind of wanted a little bit of pop of color in this back side. So that's kind of where we started with the Helen Johnson bougainvillea. They'll get 3 by 3, so they'll be a nice kind of backdrop without getting too tall in front of this window. It's going to be an ideal backdrop for my client. She was a big fan of that coloration, so that's the direction we chose to go. Now we get to this plant here, this tree here. Now this tree, of course, as I mentioned earlier, only gets 5 to 6 inches a year. So what I couldn't put the Helen Johnsons all the way up to it because I didn't want them to encroach in this tree. Now you're trying to keep the Helen Johnsons and these separated to be happy neighbors. So I found a defining line. So these Indian hawthorns right here, they curve like this, kind of like a frame around the European fan palm. So they start here, curve back, and then kind of curve forward. These guys are gonna be almost like a border, like do not touch, please. They're very controlled, very confined, get 2 foot tall, really stay nice and controlled. You can let them get 3 if you like. They're very easy to work with. They don't grow unless you say, would you grow please? I mean, that's really how they work. They're such a slow growing. They do bloom a white flower, but it's really the texture and the look of the leaf and the compactness of it that is its real beauty. So that's where this defining line is, to keep everything off of the European fan palm. This is where it gets tricky. So I need a little bit of height on the corner of the European fan palm because I don't want this all to be one level. We've got the 3 foot of the bougainvillea in the back, drops down to the 2 foot around guarding the European fan palm. But right here, I didn't want a whole row of something 4 foot or anything too big. So what I chose is a dwarf allamanda, and only 3 of them. These 3 plants right here will become one bush. That's their goal. They're gonna meld together and become a bouquet of just dwarf allamanda right here. And they're gonna be a perfect little spot of 2.5, 3 foot tall right here in this little mounding. Then it drops down over by the walkway with Blue My Minds wrapping the opposite direction. Then we start with the next tier, which is a backdrop of foxtail ferns as you're grouping. Now this gives a different kind of contrast. We go from leaf color to very vertical, kind of soft, flowy, look of the foxtail ferns, which you guys know I love. Then we draw back in with a sea little red rubies. This time of the year, they're more purple. During the summer months, they'll have more of a burgundy reddish tone. So both colors are gonna be gorgeous in this particular sea of color because we've got the yellow and the chartreuse coloring of this leaf. Foxtail fern, completely contrasting texture. And then we've got the shiny little leaves of the little rubies. And then to kind of like completely go crazy and contrast a whole nother look, we have a similar leaf structure as the little rubies, but a bright tone coloring of the golden dews or gold mounds right here. And of course, they just do enough, a little swath just to break up the color. And then finished it off with Florida boxwood right at the bottom. These are just almost like a very low controlled foot and a half ground cover that's really going to kind of keep us almost like a defined edge border. These get a little bit taller, these get a little bit taller, these get a little bit taller, and then it drops back down. So you can really see it from both sides, from the road and from people coming up the walkway. You can kind of see how easy that is. The borders are going to be very easy to keep clean. You can see I planted things in groups of each other. Hot pink pentas, right now we've got 5 here, but they're going to be 1. I just want this to be a clustering of these. No space in between. They're going to connect to each other, become one solid group of a little bit of height. Then it's going to drop over here to the golden dews and be one height along through here. This is formal. This is soft. This is soft to the back. This is formal. You kind of see the contrast. If you can't do that with multi-level of heights, you can definitely do it with textures of leaf and color changes. And that's kind of what I mean about a low maintenance garden. It doesn't have to all be one green hedge, one green hedge, one green hedge, or just a row of crotons to give you color. It can be this variation because these are all smaller, compact ground covers that love the same situation. They're more in the drought tolerant family. They're tough. They're just something that you can really work with all year long and not have to worry or fuss too much with them.
Hey you guys, Bryce here. I just wanted to pop this in real quick and ask if you could like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps show your support and keep these videos going. Also, if you're enjoying the video, please drop a true gardener in the comments. And if you're looking for any help with designing your space, or you have some questions, or you want a master plan created, or you even want a design and installation done, head over to our website. We have 3 short videos that break down our 3 services so you can see which option works best for you. In those videos, we'll go over pricing and locations for the state of Florida. And if you're looking for any products mentioned in this video, we have a link that takes you directly to our Amazon storefront where you should be able to find everything. And also, if you're looking to build your own plant palettes, we also have a link that takes you to our book that helps walk you through designing your own space. Thanks so much for your support, and let's get back to the video.
So not everyone has a huge, grand front yard to work with. And that is exactly what happened in the front yard space. This is a beautiful community in Port St. Lucie, Florida. However, the front yards, they have a lot to be desired. They're kind of compact, kind of small. The contractor, developer only lets you have so much space to work with. So we really had a very constricted front yard space to work with. And I know a lot of you guys are in the same boat, whether it's a front yard, courtyard area, a little corner side yard, kind of like my side yard, where those are just tough spots to really kind of create some magic in. Planting is key for small spaces in Florida because they really outgrow an environment very, very quickly if you do not plan for that. To start with, we have 2 beautiful foxtail palms, really giving a lot of oomph right as soon as you walk in. You guys know how I feel about walking underneath a canopy of fronds. I just think that that's just so charming, gives so much instant impact right away. So anytime you can do a street planting that offers you a big canopy entrance, to me, it's almost like having a gate right at the front entrance. So that really gives you that big impact coming right up the front. We lead over to this little section of the garden. Now, this is about 6 foot deep, so it's a very, very small width section to work with. So there's not many trees that you can incorporate into this space. Since we had big palms right at the front, I wanted something squattier, something chunkier right in this middle to really offer like a lot of impact, a lot of sculptural impact for a small space. And that's what this triple bottle palm is going to do, you guys. It's still a baby, about 5.5, just under 6 foot tall. It's a 25-gallon size, so it's a great size to start with. If your budget allows and you can get a 65-gallon, that is going to get the canopy fronds a little bit over the headline of people as they walk through. My clients know that these fronds are going to breach over into the pavers a little bit, but they're kind of like me where they don't mind a little bit of obscurity from the pavers. So I think that's going to work just fine. Now this tree will mature out to 14 foot, so that's ideal for this size. So it's going to go straight up. Those fronds will come over and across and kind of breach over into this way and breach over into that way and be the perfect anchor for such a small space. And because this is such a slow growing palm, giving you about a foot a year, it really does stay put for a long period of time. So it's always in the eye of the landscape. It's kind of always in your eyesight line, unlike a lot of our tall palms. Even our foxtail palms can get above our view line in time, but this tree will always stay within that line. So every time when these foxtail palms get 27 to 30 foot tall, they're still gonna be gorgeous, but this will be a nice 14-foot backdrop to this trunk of this foxtail. Kind of a waterfall effect as you get to the back. So I think it's absolutely just a stunning little collection of plants. Now to either side of it, I have 2 mango crotons. These are 7-gallon mango crotons. What I love about these, you guys, is they stay short and chunky. So you can keep these guys 3 foot by 3 foot. So they're never gonna outgrow this spot. So they're gonna widen into this area here and widen to just below the trunk line here. So it's gonna have kind of a nice chunky overall look. I love the variation in color. During the winter time, they tend to get a little bit darker in tone, a little bit of that reddish tone with the greens and the tips of the yellow. During the summer, they have more of the yellow tones. And you can kind of see that variation from the winter growth to the summer growth. And I just absolutely love that they offer you 2 different variations in color throughout the year. And of course, they're so easy to maintain. You just clip what you don't want off. You just take that top trunk off of the tallest one to kind of keep them more mushroomed, more manageable and compact. And because they're such slow growers, you can do that very little. So I do that about every 90 days, and you could pretty much probably just do that twice a year if you really kind of want to leave it more soft and more natural. Now, another alternate option, if you cannot find mango crotons in your nursery, are pie crust crotons, magnificent crotons, or Congo crotons. Those are all varieties that can stay chunky and kind of broaden and wide out like that. All have a nice big leaf to them, so they really do give you that nice tropical look, and you can keep them 3 foot tall without too much care. And because they grow so slow, that's where the low maintenance comes in. However, I do want to mention when it comes to those bigger leafed crotons, you want to put them in areas similar to this, where they're getting a little bit overhead protection, whether it's protection from the house or protection from fronds like this bottle palm. You see how tucked up I have them underneath these big fronds of these bottle palms? They're offering them quite a bit of shade and filtered light under here. And as this tree matures, it's going to do that even more. So they do their very best when they're not in full sun. Full sun will bleach them out and put them under stress. So filtered light, morning sun, midday sun. But once we get past early afternoon, that late afternoon sun can really, really do harm to a big leaf croton. To the back side, I needed something really tough that can handle the heat of the day. So we've got the Liriope as a backdrop. I wanted them to be able to bounce off the heat from this paper deck and the rock, as well as kind of give us a real clean, defined border. And I want that border to come to have like a little grassy pad to the back, and they're going to grow in and do that so nicely and be so contained. And there's something about Liriope mixed with crotons that I love that contrast and look. You guys know how I feel about foxtail ferns and rock. Every time I have rock or a little bit of boulders, I'll pop in just a handful of foxtail ferns. Now you can see we do do not have a huge amount of plant material collected in this grouping. 3 foxtail ferns is what we have on either side of our focal point. So in a triangle formation, I think they work the best that way. I have them framed around a boulder on both sides. So that way, as these guys grow up with that cool texture that they offer, they highlight this boulder as like a little bit of a frame. Now, you can do this with an inexpensive small boulder, just like you have here. I know we see landscapes with giant big cap rocks, and those are awesome, but they're also hundreds and hundreds of dollars for those rocks. So having a little touch of a basketball size, something just, you know, a tad bit bigger than a football size here. You tell we're a sports family. Just to give you a change in element. So we have the stone, the white Alabama river rock here, and then we have some field stone, some Tennessee field stone that we've put in here in a small size. And that just adds a little bit of interest, just one more element to the garden. The stone does a nice job of highlighting against the grass area. And I think that this, since it's a small bed, it's an ideal thing to do. And anytime that you have a bed that's sandwiched between 2 hardscape areas and you don't want mulch to run off into those areas, having stone, it just does such a great job of keeping it just tidy and neat and not having to worry about any kind of runoff. So this is the Imperialis bromeliad. Yes, very nice. I love, 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 love this plant. It can handle full sun to full shade pretty much. It does look different in both of those environments. From full sun, it can be a little pale or a little greener. When it's in partial light, like filtered light, it will have more of a burgundy tone to it. Now this one here was grown more in the full sun, so it's gonna adapt to its location. It might have more of a purple tinge to it as it matures. So you'll get to see that change according to the location. And then as this tree matures, it'll change again because this canopy will be up over it. So, but regardless, that's why I picked a plant that can handle both conditions, because we're going to have both conditions in this particular spot from now to, 10 years from now. It'll widen out to about 3.5 foot and kind of give us a spherical kind of roundness to this top. So it is not one of those bromeliads that will throw a limb this way or throw a leaf that way or throw pups every which way. This one is a solitary plant until it dies. It will offer a pup when it dies, which is, pretty ideal as bromeliads go, but it will not produce tons and tons of pups. So it is a very low maintenance plant. Only trim it as needed. I trim mine once, twice a year. If you get too much collection of water, as it holds water in this area, you can flush it out with a hose. So you bring your hose out here and just kind of flush it out in the middle of the cups, and that'll wash any of that old water away, because that is where it stores its water for its plant. Now, this particular bromeliad, unlike many others, can handle more water than others. So it can absolutely be incorporated into a tropical landscape without any kind of issues. So I love, 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 love using this plant for that reason. This versatility, shade versus sun, handling more water, and just easy low care overall trimming as needed. That's why we've made this the focal point. And I think it turned out beautifully as it is. So we made it the centerpiece, flanked it with some foxtail ferns on the side, a little touch of pentas here on the corner to pop in some color, and then highlighted the front area with some golden dew. These are the dwarf variety of the red pentas. What's great about those is that you can keep them at 2 foot. So they will continue to grow, but every other month, just do a nice cut back on these guys. So you just trim them about every other month, and they flush out and chunk out with new growth. Even if they're in full bloom, do not be afraid to trim them back. Really kind of staying nice and chunky and blooming, trimming after trimming after trimming. So you do have to do a little work to these guys, but as a beautiful carpet flower of 2 foot, I think they're definitely worth having. And you can see how this little bed was done with very few plants, but a lot of impact. We used the aluminum alloy edging to edge and keep the rocks separated from the sod here, and it's just kind of a nice, crisp, clean look all the way around. This little bed is so small that it only needed 2 irrigation heads. These are typical sprinkler irrigation heads. One sprays out this way, covering this bed and this tree, and then the other one on the far corner. They overlap each other. This is going to need to be irrigated about 3 to 4 times a week, and it's ideal for that. So now for the second section and last section of this small front yard garden. Took away what was currently here, cleared out this bed, and incorporated a triple foxtail palm. That's really going to pair beautifully with the 2 foxtail palms in the front. All this clearance so that way it didn't block any light from the window coming in, and it just really gives kind of a crown effect to the top of the roof line. Now, the reason why I chose to put something something so heavy on this side is because over on this side we have the driveway, we have the garage, we have the doorway. So having some heavier impacts, having some more interest on this side was really important for balance. So that's kind of what I'm always looking at when I'm creating a space or creating a design. So this triple foxtail, I think, is anchoring this space beautifully, and it's still very, very new. Once it really matures and opens up, it's going to be even more gorgeous. I believe it was 14 foot at planting, so that's from the top of the ground all the way up to the tallest frond, and it has a good 7 foot of clear trunk at the bottom. We'd like to plant about 5 to 6 foot off of the house line. So even when it's up and over the house line, we like to have a little bit of girth. This tree will grow slowly to about 1 foot to 2 foot per year. This is a very clay bank soil, so it's going to grow into that slow range. When you're in sandy soil, it's going to grow much faster. On either side, on these blank walls that we have, we chose a clumping rufous palm. Now these are awesome, awesome trees to light at night. I love this leaf. These are great for planters or indoor vases. Just such a cool tree, and they really have that dynamic kind of hand frond to them. So I love putting them either on blank walls, or if there's a blank spot right behind an opening of this tree, I love to put them in the center of that area as well, because they really do offer a big oomph as a backdrop. They do grow slowly, and they do grow nice and compact. The negative to these guys is they will travel. So they'll throw a little shoot to the left and to the right of itself. So you want to make sure that you pull that out. So when you do your trimming, you just take any of them out that you don't want. However, if you guys get nervous about those running shoots, then absolutely do not sleep on these guys. Go ahead and put them in a planter, put them in a pot, and put them into the garden. They work so well and can live in a pot for years and years and years. That's how I have mine in my garden. These are about 4 foot tall, and these were in a 25-gallon size. I usually get them in a 15 or 25-gallon, just depending on what, budgets allow. I love the 25-gallon size because they've clustered nice and tight at the bottom, and they've rounded out. 15-gallon is a little bit thinner, and 7-gallon and 3-gallon, it's just a little bit too hard, and it takes too long for them to really clump. They'll want to spread before they really clump. So I would stick with trying to get a 15-gallon or 25-gallon size right off the bat. Just spend the extra money to do that on these particular plants. It's worth it. I commonly will put blueberry trees into a spot like this, and it kind of gives you a nice kind of cone-like type of shape, and really does a nice bit of flanking on either side of a focal point. And then if you're in a shady spot and you do want to go back with palms, cat palms are another one. Cat palms will stop growing around that 9 to 10 foot height, so they're going to be perfect going up a wall and kind of giving you that feathery kind of softness on either side of the wall, really softening those corners. So because this tree has such long legs, you got to love her. She's absolutely stunning in this spot, but she kind of needs a little bit of backing, so you just don't miss this cool trunk lines that these guys have. So what I usually like to do is have something feathery or thick behind her. So I've used sloppy painters. You guys know how I love about sloppy painters. These are 15-gallon sloppy painters that we brought in. They are gorgeous at that size. If you can get them in 7 or 15-gallon size, do it, you guys. It's well worth the extra money because of the weight on their growth habits. When they're planted as a 7-gallon, they're chunkier and fuller, and you don't have to kind of create that on your own, planting a bunch of little plants together. These are 15-gallon. They're nice and chunky. They're really going to round out and fill out this whole space. She's going to let them get to about halfway up the window line. So from the road, you'll see this bright green and yellow kind of coloring. It's beautiful contrast against the house and the rufous palm. And I really like to have height on the sides, it to start dropping down as we get to the bottom tiers, and then of course do a secondary pop-up in the middle so we have interest. So the plants that I chose for that are the burrow marks. I wanted a little bit of a green contrast between the sloppy painters and the mango crotons there. So that dark green is going to be gorgeous as those fill out. Now most of you guys know those will get 3 foot and really chunk out and connect together. So it's almost like it creates a green line between these two. It's like, well, hold up, not too much color. Let's give it a green screen, and then the mango crotons will take over from there. So we'll have a nice divided line. I wanted this landscaping to look good from both sides because you're actually walking up the walkway here. So I wanted it to look good from the road and coming from inside and outside of the doorway area. So we have a nice dual view from both sides. We continued low planting with the dwarf ixoras. It's just a little swoop of dwarf ixoras. You could see I used something real compact, real controlled to kind of hide away the crazy. Nice big philodendron leaves here that are going to fold over. They're a little bit more controlled, but they're still philodendron leaves. They're still going to kind of do their thing and kind of be a soft planting. And then the mango crotons will get a little bushy and crazy. So these dwarf ixoras and this gold mound down below do a nice job of having 2 tiers of keeping it controlled and very clean lines. So you guys know my style is crazy in the back, pared back in the front, and that's exactly what this will do. It'll make it feel like it's a purposeful landscape. So anytime you're like, ooh, did I get a little bit too crazy with that landscaping? Now it's time to divide it and create something really fine-tuned. Dwarf Ixoras are my go-to for that. So are Gold Mound, Dwarf Collusia, Variegated Arboricola. Those are things that kind of you can really keep and draw with, kind of curve with. So anything Carissa Boxwood, Blew My Minds, that's what you want to use. So, and then of course we just tapered it off and finished it to the corner. This is not the same shape or size as the bed adjacent to it, but trying to find some balance and kind of make them two mirror each other is always an important thing. You don't want to have one style way over there, another bed right across from it, a completely different style, like that was almost like an afterthought. Do little pop-outs of stone in this bed to tie these two areas together. Have some of that Tennessee field stone framing some of the key features in this garden by having them over there. So that way it feels like, gosh, this is a bed that's almost just like it's interrupted by the walkway. Like this is one continuous space, then the walkway comes through the middle of it and interrupts that space, but then it continues right on to the next planter. That makes one little space look bigger by having a continuation. So keep those long arching beds as long and as big as you can possibly make them. And then here we had the budget to do a nice little finial planting with this Yucca rostrata. I love this plant. It is like a little firework in the garden. It is just so stunning with its bright blue colors. It has gorgeous, gorgeous leaves to it. It's just such a beautiful look. When this guy gets big, they get very, very expensive as they grow taller. It does have a nice trunk to it, and then it does have a nice big round head. It'll be a stunner as a front focal point. It'll be like a sculpture in the garden. Brought in at 15-gallon size. It's a great size, still affordable. They are pricey little accents, but gosh, they are so worth it. They live a long time and they grow super slow. So if you're gonna put them in a pot on a pool deck, they don't drop a bunch of stuff. It's almost like a look at me plant, that kind of fan look to them. So having 3 of those on your back pool deck, I think is ideal. And then dappled in some ground cover. So these are little 1-gallon Blew My Minds that are gonna kind of fill in this spot. To the back, we have some Gold Mound holding back the crazy of those burl marks and mango crotons there. So these guys are gonna be 6 foot tall. Those guys are gonna be around 4 to 5 foot tall. These drop down to 3 foot tall, 3 foot tall, 2 foot to the bottom, a focal point coming out of the middle, and about 1.5 to 2 foot at the bottom with the Blew My Mind. So you can really see that layering effect happen. Look at all that darkness on either side. Doesn't it call for a pop of interest with these leaves? I mean, I just love this leaf color. It's so stunning. A lot of people let them get giant and tall and kind of go crazy. You can keep them this size forever. You can keep them 3 foot, 4 foot tall forever by just trimming whatever you do not want. It's just this one trunk that you would trim off and it'll start to fill out. So they're looking for neighboring plants to connect to. These will group as one solid bush and become a clustering of that bright color. And when that happens, they're just golden. They're just a stunner in the garden. If you can have that much bright and dark in a garden, doesn't matter how small it is, it just pops. We are touring a garden in Fort Pierce, Florida. I wanted to bring you guys along on this specific spot because it is a low maintenance front yard planting. And you know, I think the right plant for the right place was so important to kind of stress in this garden. I think that if you guys are looking for something in the low care realm and you still want that splash of tropics, then stick around because I think this video is gonna be right up your alley. Starting with the lowest maintenance thing in this whole front bed, boulders. You guys, do not be afraid to incorporate some boulders into your garden. They add a change of texture, add a little bit of oomph. Your landscape is going to grow around them. All you do is trim around the boulder so that way it's always seen in the garden. And it just becomes a place to rest your eye as you're looking through the whole space. Having some impact boulders, they don't have to be crazy expensive boulders. I love the coquina boulders. I love what they offer. Some of them have the holes in them where you can pop a bromeliad or an interesting succulent into it. It's just kind of a little bit of personality in the garden, and it changes up that texture with, let's all say it, low maintenance, no maintenance, which is ideal in the garden. The next thing that we did is, you guys probably remember the giant firebush clustering that was here. I don't know if it came across in the picture or not, but it was taller than me and had gaps all through the bottom because it was trimmed and trimmed and trimmed to try to maintain a lower type of planting. But it ended up turning into a wall, which pretty much walled off the whole front of the house here. It was just a complete cover. So that was the first thing that we did. We completely removed, cleared out everything in this bed and went back with a layering effect that the client can still see the home on. starting with our low material. So you guys know I love my Bloom My Minds. I just did a little touch of those right on the corner so that way you get that pop of color. Now you see we started with the lowest tier, so this is kind of an easy thing to build on. When you have Bloom My Minds, it means what you have in the back doesn't have to be huge. So we've got a little clustering of foxtail ferns. Almost every time I do a unique boulder in a landscape, I'll put some foxtail ferns or some agaves or some bromeliads, whatever the budget allows, to kind of frame that boulder, to kind of give it a little bit of a, I don't know, a little bit of a highlight. So having a little bit of a halo of these guys, I think really added some interest here. And they're not too big, so they're not going to cover what we have behind them. So right behind them, we've got a nice grouping of king sagos. Now, king sagos grow exceptionally slow, so they kind of require once a year trimming. So I've got them dazzled in a little cluster here, pulled forward, back, forward. And that's kind of my style. I'm a zigzagger kind of landscaper. And then I chose a bedding plant to go around them. So they're going to be really highlighted by these golden dews or gold mounds down below. When those are trimmed to kind of curve all the way through this bed, they're clustered together here and they curve up through here and then back this way. It looks nice now, but when it grows in, it's gonna be like a sea of this beautiful lime kind of coloring and yellow during the summer. Now, those are probably gonna be on the higher maintenance of everything in this whole garden because every other month those are gonna need trimming. But most people have lawn maintenance companies. And the one thing that lawn maintenance companies do really well is hedge trim. So when you have a hedge planting amongst all your sea of your tropical plantings, you don't necessarily have to worry about how they're gonna trim it. They're not gonna scalp it or cut it too tight or cut it too short. A hedge of golden mound is pretty easy to kind of figure out how you want that. So this is going to be a nice dwarfed 2-foot sea of light lime green during the times of the year and yellow during the summer times of the year. Then we go into a collection of these Carissa boxwood, which are like a Florida boxwood. They're very formal, very, very tight, but I love their round leaf. They're very controlled, a great little planting, and they're just going to kind of give us a break between the colors, and that nothing shows off a color more than when you add green to it. This pop of green between the blue, between the yellow, and again the blue is really going to show off so much because of those little green guys. Kind of visualize with me, everything from the front stays low, works its way up higher, accents pop out of the 2-foot plant bedding here. So this is going to be overall a very clean design that really just has some vertical interest, but not overdone, because that's exactly what he was getting away from. He did not want it to be overdone. He didn't want to come back and it be 10 foot tall in this area or even have things like that in this spot. Now, I will say we hit it out of the park with this house because they already had a beautiful collection of trees. We have 2 gorgeous Christmas palms here. We have 2 stately foxtail palms right at the edge of the driveway. We have a beautiful triple foxtail palm on the opposite side of the house that is really grown in, is just a stunner on that corner. Originally, there was a tree here, a diseased magnolia that just been struggling, and it was so close to everything else, and it was about, I would say, 18 foot tall. It was pretty enormous. It just pretty much took up this whole space, and it was never really happy here. So my client was open to just taking that out and really opening up this bed. Now, they have concrete curbing. Not my favorite, but it's working in the space. If it were Buda edging, I may have changed the bed a little bit, just tweaked it a little bit, because you can pop that up and add to it. But unfortunately, the concrete edging is here to stay, and you can't really manipulate it much. So we worked with what was there, but sometimes that's exactly what you have to do in the landscape world. Now we have 2 bare spots on the walls. So originally they had a lot of foliage right up against the house line on the walls, but having some impact that's controlled here, I think is gonna be so cool. Having that lime green color, the blues, the greens from the king sagos, and then there's a big break with the quarter lines. I just think that's it's gonna be such a cool look. Letting these guys get to about my height is gonna be gorgeous right here. This just big pop of color. This is a nice protected area, so they're gonna have a deeper tone than normal. Now, you guys, when you plant your quarter lines, I know a lot of people plant them at a good distance apart because they worry about those roots connecting to the the other plants and maybe starving them out. That is not the case with cordyline. You could actually pile these guys up together and plant them in almost like a bouquet fashion, because you're going to modify that soil. I mean, look how close these guys are planted together. It allows it to be so dense and full and such a gorgeous collection. I get so many questions on how do you keep your cordyline so thick and luscious and big? That's exactly how you do it. They'll naturally grow out like a lily versus growing straight up. So they'll kind of push against each other and do that. And as long as your soil is good and fertile, as long as you fertilize, they're not going to have any issues, because they're going to join roots, and it's almost like you potted them up from a small pot to a bigger pot, and they're very, very happy. All right, so moving on to the next area. So we have some dwarf collusia. These guys do not do what your regular collusia do. They have a much smaller leaf. They're the minis. They're called nanas, and they really stay compact. You really have to trim them very little, but they have that same cool succulent leaf. These guys just had a real harsh trim back, so you can really see that. They're a little stemmy right now, but normally they're full and thick and just such a beautiful tropical little plant. A lot of people say they look like little mini sea grapes, but they're just such a cool little compact plant, easy to keep. They're just a step up in size from these Carissa boxwood, so they're going to play so well together. And then because we have what? All the paired backness to the front, we get to get a little wild and crazy to the back. So we have the Song of India. I just love how they're going to encompass this Queen Emma. When this Queen Emma gets bigger, you won't see this base at all, because between these guys, when they get 2 foot, and those guys, when they get 4 foot, you're really going to have a sea of variegation in color right there. And then that Queen Emma is going to pop out like, you know, somebody popping out of a birthday cake. It's going to be so gorgeous as that center firework in the garden. And what you'll notice, that one of the things that I really liked about this house is probably what you guys are liking, which is the stonework. I think that it's so cool and great feature on what's a relatively small wall. So I took the blank walls and dialed them way up with some color. And then I took the center of the window and kind of gave something more vertical. That's going to be more of an impact vertically here that is almost going to bring your attention to the wall instead of hiding it. So we've got chunky and fat vertical on the sides, and then something like a firework fountain like in the middle. And I think that's just going to be a nice combination in this front area. And keep in mind, this bed is not huge if you guys are looking at this space. So we really don't have a lot of space to work with in the yard, in this whole front yard space. This is outside the house line, right to the edge. And right now all there is palmettos and some invasive vines to that back. So I chose Brazilian red cloaks. I really want them to kind of engulf the whole base of this tree. So they kind of go all the way around this beautiful triple palm tree. You get these beautiful big giant blooms that are going to come about 6 to 8 foot tall. And this will be the highest part of the landscape. This will be the ending point. It'll be almost like you have now reached the finish line of this bed. And that's exactly what these guys are going to do. They're going to really blanket. And I think that's going to be a stunner as a nice backdrop. And it also helps kind of give a little bit of softness to all the palmettos behind it. We have a little clustering to the front of the Songs of India just to tie in with that middle area. And then of course, we finish them off with the Carissa boxwood. Now, if this is y'all's style and you like this kind of look for this particular bed, see how I have a Carissa boxwood? I don't have a whole row of them. I like to keep it a little interesting. We've got the Carissa boxwood, a grouping of 3, then there's a boulder and a break. Again, it's a rinse and repeat. It's following a rhythm. It's finding a pattern, working that pattern through the whole bed. I know that this bed size is different than the opposite bed size, but you still have to find similarities. You'll notice that the landscape bed just comes together so nicely because there's a flow to it. There's just a nice natural flow to that whole bed when that's done. So find what you like, take that, and then do a break. Find a centerpiece, and then do that again. Find your centerpieces over here, but continue with that pattern. And if you can follow through with that pattern, then now everything looks seamless, and better than that, everything is super low maintenance. They had 2 beautiful foxtail palms here, surrounded by some foxtail ferns. A lot of people have a very similar situation. They'll have us come in and do like big, nice, big looped curved beds in the front or the backyard, but then they've got those certain areas of their previous landscape, and they're like, should we tie in that to your landscape, or should we keep it separate? And a lot of cases, I do tie it in together. However, in this particular case, because of the concrete curbing, I opted to leave it individual, and I'm not hating it. I really do like it. This side was an easy, like no-brainer. Obviously, there's plenty of separation, but this side over here, I had some concerns about, because this area, there was a little little bit of a gap between here and a little bit of a gap between there. And I know low maintenance was our thing, so I'm always thinking about what is the lowest maintenance. However, my client was perfectly fine with keeping these two islands separated. I think it added just a little bit of that natural feel to a more manicured landscape that we have to the back. And then I also noticed that they took that same kind of stonework and kept it in the front sections, right by the front area of the bed. So it kind of tied the two areas together. And I guess you guys can see a theme in the way that I think. As long as you have something that makes sense, as long as there's a theme that starts here and wherever it ends, you continue throughout those key areas with that same theme, then you're gonna have a successful landscape. It's gonna be beautiful and it's gonna work. It's gonna work low maintenance wise for you. And if this is something that you guys are thinking about doing and you have a similar situation, then just tie in whatever underplanting maybe. So maybe you've got a tree out there, maybe it's a holly, maybe it's a palm tree, maybe it's whatever it might be. Take whatever plant grouping that you have somewhere else in the bed and tie that in, because you can see underneath here, we've got foxtail ferns here, and it ties in with the other foxtail ferns that we just kind of spotted around those boulders. But this could have been the same type of lower ground cover that we have in other areas and worked just the same. So we are now at the last bed in this front yard design, and I think it's a beautiful bed. I think it's got a lot of variegation of color. I think it's really going to bring a lot of pop. Now, this is the bed that's seen when people pull up the driveway, they park here, they get out, they go to the front door. So this is the area when my client, when Tom is pulling out and coming around this way, he gets this right in his face every single morning. And I think, what a better way to wake up than this. I think it's going to turn out so beautifully as it matures. These 3 palm trees, we were lucky enough to inherit. They were here, so we worked with what was here. Again, when you're doing low maintenance material, you want to kind of work with things that are more ordinary, things that have been around the bin a while. And that means mammy crotons and variegated arbicola. Are they always showstoppers in everybody's garden? No. In some cases, they're a supporting plant that just offers you exactly what you need. But sometimes if you take those particular plants, granted they have to be a good quality of that type of plant, but you take those common plants and then you introduce something really cool and exotic near it, then it allowed for you to have both by choosing a more simplistic plant. Because if you're trying to keep a low maintenance garden, you got to kind of be careful about the drama queens that you pick in the garden. I'm going to balance it out with things like this that are more common, that are easy to care for and not going to get away from me. Mammy crotons do a great job of that. They really round out, they stay nice and compact. You can keep these guys 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, whatever your collection of height that you're looking for in this area, because they grow so slow and you have to trim them so little, you can keep them at a desired height as small as 2 foot, which is ideal. These to the back are the variegated arbicolas, and having them right in this range, having them around 4 foot is gonna make this color pop out. Right now you see right through to the back because these aren't tall enough, but once they get into this height, have a little yellow and green to the back of your red and yellows and oranges, and you will see those red, yellows, and oranges pop like crazy because of what these guys are doing as a backdrop to force that color forward. So these are going to be a great yellow and green screen for this color on this corner. And then we had 2 kind of big gaps. We have a tree in the middle with kind of no real centerpieces. So I opted to do 2 Cateria palms. They're only going to get 9 to 10 foot in this particular spot. They're kind of nice and compact at the bottom, opens up like a bouquet towards the middle, and kind of softens this back area. He didn't want anything like Lucie here, anything like too much of a barrier here, more of a natural screening because there's no grass behind there. That's kind of just a natural walkway to get back to the preserve. So he wanted a soft screening, but not complete coverage. And that's exactly what this is going to do. Now, just to either side of the variegated arbicolas, we have the Pinocchio crotons. These crotons have stolen my heart. I am using them everywhere. I love the way they look. I started using them about 3 years ago, but now I'm seeing them more readily available, and thank goodness for it, because they can grow in the sun. They can grow in the shade. And I mean sun. I mean sun. They can grow out in the full sun and really keep that spotted variegated color. It's kind of a combination of different leaves. I mean, look at this leaf color here with some of that orange to some of this leaf color, I don't know if you can see it, but down here with just that kind of variegation of what almost like a sloppy painter does. It's kind of like a combination of several different varieties of crotons all in one. But what I do like about them is they will get big. So these guys could get 5, 6, 7 foot tall tall back here and stay full from the top to the bottom, which is a unique trait when it comes to crotons. That is not something that you commonly get. You always have to have a skirt planting, mostly with crotons. These guys will stay full top to bottom, become a nice colorful wall back here, and they're gonna have the variegation of the light and greens on either side. So that variegation of the arboricolas down to these is just gonna be a pop of color. And just in case that wasn't enough color, we've spotted the Songs of India to the front of those. Oh my goodness, right around that boulder. They're all hairy-carry, they're all a little wild, they're right after my own heart. I just love how they're gonna connect together. And you guys, we do not have tons of these. We have 6, 3 and 3 in a triangle formation. 2 to the back, 1 pulled forward. Here we have 2 to the front, 1 pulled back. I love that zigzag pattern because my whole goal is to make 6 plants look like 1 plant. You want a kind of a connection. That's what keeps things low maintenance. It helps with weed control, making this your ground cover by itself. Once these connect, you're not mulching in this bed, you're only mulching along the tips or along the edges of the garden. This is all concealed, this is all dense, this is all full. And it goes from this height of 4 foot to what's hopefully get to about 6 foot. And then we've got 4 foot on the corners with the variegated arboricolas, down to 2 foot with the mammy crotons in the front. So you can kind of see how this layering is going to come in. I mean, it's going to go boom, boom, back down to the foxtail ferns, up to the variegated arboricolas, up to the tallest version of these Pinocchio crotons, and then down to the Song of India, and then all the way down to the Liriope at the end. So when this bed comes together, it's gonna be just like a sequence of movement. It's not a huge bed to do that. This can be any island somewhere, any front yard anywhere. This doesn't have to be at the edge of a driveway. I think you can replicate this just about anywhere. Then you get a little bit of filter protection. You do need some sun protection to create an island like this, but overall, it's going to be an easy care island. And then we have a centerpiece of the boulder, and we flanked an agave on either side of those boulders. And then yet again, a little clustering of 3 foxtail ferns to kind of give it a little bit of impact and to kind of tie it in with the rest of the landscape. In this particular spot, we don't have, believe it or not, as much sun as we have in the front. So I use Liriope, evergreen Liriope, that's going to stay nice and compact and low and just kind of give this bed a little bit of a softening. So this is going to do a great job. If they didn't have curbing, that would help that mulch flow in. So if you guys do not have edging between your pavers and your landscaping, use green Liriope. They'll do a fantastic job. Just stagger them in and they'll kind of knit together and hold in that ground cover. And then as that grows in, a year, year and a half later, you won't have to mulch those edgings at all because that Liriope will now become your ground cover. So it's an ideal thing to incorporate. All right, you guys, we have reached the end of the bed. This right here is a transplanted bird of paradise. We inherited it. It's going through a little bit of a shock, but it'll bounce back. We had this little corner area, so I chose to relocate it back into this spot. And then we ended it with the Brazilian red cloaks, just like we have on the opposite corner of the garden, the whole other side of the yard. But when you're looking from the street and these guys are 6, 7 foot tall and those guys are 6, 7 foot tall over there, blooming with color, it'll feel like the perfect sandwich. The house is just sandwiched in between them. So ending it where you started is ideal if you can do that. The rest of the garden, as you can see, is a complete repeat of what we have on the opposite side, and that is the goal there.